You are listening to a Star Trek audio presentation from Frontline Productions. Visit us on the web at www.startrekdiplomaticrelations.com.
It was lovely to meet you, Fourth Representative. I will have my assistant call your people to set up an appointment as soon as possible.
Thank you, Lady Envoy. I hope we can address this matter quickly. If you'll excuse me.
Of course. Fair day, madam. Finally! I thought she would never leave.
I must say, Madam Ambassador, you handled her very well. I do not think she had even the slightest thought that you tuned her out after the first 5 minutes.
I did not tune her out, Mr. Fedran, but she did have a habit of repeating her point somewhat. After 5 minutes, I understood the situation perfectly, but that didn't stop her from carrying on for another 20.
Believe me, Ambassador, I am well aware of that habit. She is one of the many members of the High Curia that are involved in coordinating the various aid efforts we have set up on Tahn'Los. Thanks to her selfless efforts, I have spent many a night since my arrival gingerly nursing a substantial headache.
You've only been here a week, Mr. Fedran.
I believe that was my point. Ursula, please call me Nevichkal, or, if you prefer, simply Cal. Mr. Thedran makes me feel far too old.
Very well, Cal. Have you really had that much difficulty? I have found many of the women I have interacted with to be suitably refreshing.
Bring back memories of home, Ursula?
In a way, I suppose. The changes that have been happening over the last few centuries on Tahn'Los remind me of how things have started to change on Angel 1. It was only 20 years ago we were just as matriarchal as the Tahn'Lana before their great wars. I suppose I should count my people lucky that we didn't have to go through something that drastic to promote change regarding equality of the sexes.
I have observed that you do seem more at ease with men than other Angelian women I have met, Ursula.
I was an exception. My mother was one of those that fell in love with one of the human survivors of the Odin freighter crash. I was raised around strong male figures, so I saw men a bit differently than the other women of my generation. Saying that, though, I still have a little of my grandmother's attitude when I deal with certain men.
Ah, yes. I heard about your little run-in with Lieutenant Dazan in one of the research labs last week.
The less said about that man, the better, Ambassador. I just hope he's as good as he thinks he is.
He is more than qualified and comes highly recommended, if grudgingly, by his superiors. Like it or not, we need him here for the time being if we're going to solve the Tahn'Lana question, as Starfleet is calling it.
I still don't understand why Starfleet is so interested with the possible presence of the preservers on this planet.
Since the original Enterprise discovered the obelisk on Agrement in the late 2260s, standing orders are to investigate any suggestion of the preservers' existence. The fact that their presence has been found on a completely alien world, one not inhabited by transplanted humans, makes it even more of a puzzle. A puzzle Command will want solved as soon as possible.
Be that as it may, I'm not going to let Starfleet exploit or mislead these people simply to gain a scientific insight into the preservers. Sometimes it feels that Starfleet has more of a say over the way we treat Federation member worlds than the actual Federation Council does.
You will get no argument from me on that subject, Ambassador. It was part of the reason I resigned.
Part of the reason?
Part. There were some other, more personal reasons.
Oh.
Ambassador, may I ask you a question?
Feel free, Cal.
Since my arrival, I have witnessed several occasions where you displayed quite a passion for the Tahn'Lana people. I am also aware that you are very popular with the House of Royal Blood, as evidenced by the royal title the princess bestowed upon you. I read the reports of your initial mission to Tahn'Los before I arrived, but aside from the medical and archaeological reports, it did not contain anything that would indicate why you have forged such a deep connection to the Tahn'Lana.
Those logs wouldn't, really. They just contained dry facts with no elaboration on what really happened.
Why? What happened? I read something about a series of deaths.
There was that, yes. But there was also quite a bit more.
Frontline Productions presents Star Trek Diplomatic Relations. The year is 2384, and peace is finally falling over an area of space that has been racked with years of conflict. The United Federation of Planets has welcomed a new alien world into the fold that is still finding its way in the galactic community. A world which holds many secrets and mysteries that its inhabitants and their Federation allies are only now beginning to explore. Episode 2, a-gré-ment, starring Barbara Pooter as Jessica Kingsley, Nick Beckwith as Dr. Philip Gregson, and Jennifer Cole as Yella Norian.
Personal log. Starfleet 1 has recently arrived in orbit of the planet of Tahn'Los, one of the last planets on my goodwill tour of Federation worlds and colonies near to the former Briar Patch. Once the tour is over, the ship will drop us off at Deep Space 12 for a debriefing session with the sector commander before she takes us back to Earth for some needed downtime. This debriefing cannot come soon enough because, quite frankly, I'm exhausted. Dealing with so many angry people has not been easy. Not that I thought it would be. But even though the conflict with the Breen and Tholians has finally ended, the repercussions are still being felt by our member worlds. With the death toll in the hundreds of thousands so soon after the Dominion War, there are not many people who haven't been affected by the battle for the secrets of the tetrahedrons. And many of the worlds are still waiting to see if it was even worth it. Tahn'Los is a world only now beginning to come to grips with the fact that they are part of a galactic community. Their world is an archaeological marvel, apparently. We're scheduled to meet the Federation envoy tomorrow, who will take us to meet with the leader of their world government. Hopefully, compared to the most recent worlds we visited, this will be slightly more easy. So, Ms. Norian, this Federation envoy...
Sovic ambassador?
Right, Sovic. He's been there as part of the initial staff when they were welcomed as a protectorate, as well as being up for the position of Chief of Mission, now that they are joining the Federation fully?
Correct. He was appointed by the head of the Diplomatic Corps personally because of his experience with easing protectorate worlds in. He served a stint with the Avor after their initial induction and received quite a lot of praise for his work.
Of course, since he is a Vulcan, he would probably see the praise as a needlessly emotional response to doing his duty.
More or less, Ambassador.
According to the brief, this world used to be ruled by the Ferengi a few centuries ago, and it was their influence, so to speak, that helped to unite not only the previously warring factions, but also close the gender divide that existed.
That is right. They moved beyond their matriarchal ways, and the unity helped push the world into recovery, although they still have a long way to go, even with the repositories they discovered after becoming a protectorate.
The world's entire history, encapsulated in underground facilities that have withstood the tests of time for maybe a millennium? I still find that hard to believe.
I hope we get to tour one of them, Ambassador.
I doubt we will have time to see to your hobbies, Philip.
Don't deny the man his dream, Yella. I have to admit, I'd like to visit them just to actually see one for myself.
Very well, Ambassador.
Ready, Chief?
Coordinates locked, Ambassador. We've also received clearance to beam down and notification that Envoy Sovic is waiting for you.
Energize.
I hate transporters.
Greetings, Ambassador Kingsley. Welcome to Tahn'Los.
Thank you, Mr. Sovic. A pleasure to be here.
If you will follow me, I will take you to where the first representative is waiting.
Renzi Islan, Ambassador. She just won the election for the position of First, which she had been serving in as an acting capacity since the retirement and ill health of the previous First.
I remember the brief. She's a strong advocate of Federation ties.
It is my belief that statement is in error, Ambassador.
Pardon me?
It is my observation from various meetings that First Representative Islan is not in favor of strong ties with the Federation.
What?
That seems a sudden turnaround.
May I remind you that we are dealing with a career politician. She may simply have felt that in order to secure her place as first representative, she should endorse Federation support. Now that she has attained her goal, she may be displaying her true intentions.
I doubt that, Mr. Sovic. She would lose support instantly if she didn't make good on her campaign promises.
And it doesn't seem to follow with her past history. She has been a supporter of the Federation involvement long before she became a high-ranking member of the High Curia.
You are, of course, entitled to your own opinions on the matter, but I ask you to pay close attention to the first representative during our meeting.
If you insist, Mr. Sovic.
Fair day, Envoy Sovic.
Greetings, First Representative Islan. May I present to you Ambassador Jessica Kingsley, Ms. Yila Norian, and Dr. Philip Gregson, members of the Ambassador's staff.
A pleasure to meet you all. I have laid out an itinerary for the day, Ambassador, so you shall be able to make the most of your time here, visiting some of our historical sites, including some of the more excavated repositories.
Excuse me, First Representative, but is that really a correct usage of the Ambassador's time?
I beg your pardon?
Would it not be more logical to discuss some of the various issues that need to be addressed?
I was under the impression that the Ambassador was here as an elected spokesperson for your Federation President, Envoy Sovic. Surely such an individual would care to see some of the greatest surviving achievements of our people.
Perhaps another time, First Representative, since the matters intended for discussion are surely more important than a tour of such places.
Excuse me, Mr. Sovic, First Representative? May I speak?
Of course.
Yes, Ambassador?
The tour of the repositories and other sites does sound intriguing. I think we would very much like to take you up on that offer.
But, Ambassador...
We are going to be here for several days, Mr. Sovic. I think we can leave the various matters for discussion for at least one day in order to take in some of what Tahn'Los has to offer.
Very well, Ambassador. I will leave you to this activity.
You're not coming, Mr. Sovic?
No, Dr. Gregson. I have other business that requires my attention if we are not immediately tending to matters that the First Representative wishes to raise. Good day.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did he just have a go at us?
He is a highly decorated career diplomat, Philip. Not to mention a Vulcan. He doesn't do having a go.
I beg to differ on that, Yela. So, First Representative, shall we begin?
I must apologize, but I will not be joining you either. I have arranged for my assistant to conduct the tour. If you will excuse me, I will also make sure your transport has been arranged. Fair day to you.
Fair day, First Representative.
Well, this is going rather well so far.
It seems that our envoy isn't the most welcomed individual here either.
What makes you say that?
Did you not see the body language from Islam? Dead giveaway. Not to mention how tense she sounded when she spoke to him.
I have a feeling you're right, Philip. Mr. Sovic may be well respected by the diplomatic corps, but it seems he has made himself unpopular here, especially with that attitude.
Vulcans don't have attitude, Ambassador.
You'd be surprised, Yela. Well, so much for first impressions. And seconds, if Aslan expects us to be just like Sovic. Let's hope we can do better the next time we meet.
What's the human expression? Third time's the charm, I believe?
Well, it's better than 3 strikes and you're out, I suppose. The repositories were as amazing as you said, Mr. Vinade. And I just can't believe I got to actually see one.
It was an honor to show you around them, Dr. Gregson. Only a few people outside of the archaeology teams have been permitted to enter them, so count yourself lucky.
I'm something of an archaeology buff myself, and read some of the reports released since the Federation was invited to help in the excavation. Seeing one was a dream.
One you were still going on about hours after we left, Philip.
Hey!
Let the man have his moment, Yela. It's not every day you get to see something like those places. So, where are we heading now?
We are on our way to Greeny Lake, one of our biggest and oldest cities on this continent, since it was one of the few cities to survive more or less intact after the great wars of past time. We should be there in another few hours. You also might find it interesting to know that this area we are passing over was one such place heavily affected by the strip mining undertaken by the avatars of greed, the ones you call Ferengi.
Prime Assistant.
Yes, pilot?
We've picked up something on our scanners. A settlement of some kind.
A settlement?
It is probably only a tribe of Helene.
Helene?
One of our emergent philosophers after the Great Wars. Her followers stay true to the teachings she passed on, so they travel around the continent, relocating their settlements every so often so they do not exhaust one particular area of resources.
You mean they're nomads?
If I understand the term correctly, then yes. Would you like to meet them?
Is that possible?
Although they prefer to stay away from most of the industrial cities, they are still part of our modern world, with an elected representative in the High Curia. They have no problems with contact with peaceful outworlders. Pilot, set us down near the settlement.
Acknowledged.
I will access the visual sensors so you can take a look for yourselves before we land.
Oh, rustic.
You were expecting?
No real expectations. But this setup looks decidedly low-tech, and I am not a big fan of low-tech.
Not many people about. Can't see anyone, actually.
What's that, just east of the settlement? Looks like some kind of recent digging activity. Lots of it.
I will tighten the sensor feed.
Are those...
graves?
And many of them.
Pilot, land us immediately.
Yes, Prime Assistant.
There isn't a soul in sight.
Hello? Is anybody here?
Over there, in that tent structure, is a central communal area. We should investigate there first. Then we could split up and search the other smaller buildings that form the family unit habitats.
Let's go then.
Maybe we should inform the High Curia of this.
We don't know enough, Yala.
Aren't those graves enough reason?
Not until we find out why there are so many. It could have been something mundane that resulted in those deaths, like a rock slide or some other natural disaster.
Do you hear that?
Yes, just about. It seems to be coming from the central tent.
Let's go.
Oh my.
It seems that the entire tribe has relocated to this tent.
Strangers, you should leave here at once. We've been touched by evil.
What do you mean, wise woman?
Our community has been afflicted by some means we do not understand. It has struck us hard and taken its toll.
Graves?
Yes, you have seen what this touch has already cost us. I fear you must leave now before you too become... Oh.
Wise woman!
Philip!
Good thing the executive shuttle was a Federation design and had this medkit aboard. Let's see. It seems this woman's in the early stages of complete organ failure, although the reason isn't jumping out at me. It just looks like her body's fighting with itself to stay functional.
Is that what's affecting everyone?
I can't be conclusive without more thorough scans, but the preliminary readings suggest that, yes.
We should leave and get help. We can't do anything ourselves.
We can't leave, Yayla.
What? But we might get infected too!
I think that is the point.
I do not understand.
Standard Federation guidelines mean I must quarantine this entire area, including the shuttle crew and us. For all we know, we were infected the second we stepped out of the shuttle. We're not going anywhere.
How goes the gathering of equipment, Ensign?
The cargo bay is being loaded full of the last batch Dr. Gregson has specified, Ambassador, but our Chief Medical Officer feels he should be involved in this investigation as well.
Not yet, Ensign. The quarantine is in total effect until Dr. Gregson can isolate or at least identify what is causing this illness and determine if it is contagious. He can do that faster since he is already familiar with Tahn'Los physiology. Since we don't know how this disease may spread, we can't risk contaminating the ship either.
I'll pass that on to the Admiral, but he isn't going to be happy.
That makes him one of many, Ensign. Kingsley out.
Everything's set, Ambassador.
The equipment is just about to be beamed down. There we go.
Wonderful. Let's start setting this all up. We need this all up and running ASAP.
If I didn't know it, I think Philip was enjoying being in charge.
I think Philip knows full well just what needs to be done, Yaela.
Maybe so. But I still think we should have waited for the Tahn'Los Medical Council to send their own team.
There is no point in wasting time and maybe lives waiting for help when we have already been able to set up a workable, if temporary, medical facility. Philip has already managed to make some progress in his analysis simply by having his tricorder readings verified by the biocomputers that have been sent down, allowing him access to the ship's database.
I am simply concerned that our handling of the matter may cause some issues down the line.
You mean you're worried that the High Curia will have its feathers ruffled because we took the initiative and didn't call them in straight away? Aslan may not be a fan of the Federation for whatever reason, Yaela, but I highly doubt that she will let that interfere with the effective treatment of these people.
Well, Assistant Vignette said they were dispatching a quarantine control team from Gronilik that should arrive in a few more hours.
Fine. I need some air.
Ambassador!
You have something, Philip?
Some, yes. I've managed to identify the problem, to a degree.
That was fast, wasn't it?
If this was a completely unknown species, it would take time, but thankfully I immersed myself in the Tahn'Los physiology when I was assigned here as part of the Federation Relief Agency. I also have a pretty passable understanding of all their known diseases and such, which help narrow the field down, so to speak. We're dealing with some kind of toxemia, which is why the body is acting like a war zone, as it's reacting to a poison in the system, hence the internal organs failing one by one. The strain's too much.
Can you fight it?
Only the symptoms, and broad-spectrum antibiotics will help keep it at bay, but they aren't a cure. Only a stopgap until we identify the disease causing the toxemia-like effect, or develop or find an antivirus.
Well, that's something, I suppose.
The other good news is that none of us are infected.
You're sure?
Positive. Not even V8 and the shuttle crew. None of us have any indication of the toxemia in our systems.
But how can you be sure that means we're not infected? It could take a while to develop, couldn't it?
According to what some of the He-Lin have told me as I took samples, this disease struck very fast. They've only been in this area for a short while, and the tests I've managed to perform do verify that it's a fast-acting little devil.
So somehow they became infected with this disease. But how?
I'm still working on that.
Dr. Gregson?
Yes? Did you get permission?
They are understandably hesitant, as you can imagine, but I managed to stress the urgency of your request.
Request?
I need some more samples to see what the eventual effect this toxemia has on the body, which means I need to analyze a recently deceased individual.
Ah.
They agreed?
Although the Helene prefer the nomadic lifestyle, as you call it, they also understand the value of medical science, Ambassador. They would like a few moments to conduct a prayer for the individual before you begin.
Of course. Where would they like us to go?
The southeast side of the village. That is where the people have been interred. The dig site on the northwest side is where the livestock have been buried.
Livestock?
You mean animals?
Yes, Tilvoon beasts, very capable animals. They raise their own herds to accompany them.
We didn't see it on the way in.
What remains of the herd was taken to graze on a patch of land an hour's trek away, I'm told, since this area is not quite what they are used to.
You said, what remains of the herd?
The livestock's been affected too.
It appears so, yes. I did not think it was that important.
This could be very important. I need samples of the livestock from both the deceased and the one still kicking.
Why is it necessary to get samples from the Tahn'Los equivalent of a cow?
It would take too long to explain, Yaela. If I find anything, I will let you know. Yet I say, thank the He-Lin for letting me exhume the body, but I want to check this first.
Yes, Doctor.
Is everything set up?
As much as can be, given the surroundings, Ambassador. The quarantine control team brought in lots of more specialized equipment as well.
Good. Now that we seem to have established that this illness came from eating the meat and milk of infected livestock, we can finally get some proper treatment started.
But if true, there is still the question of how the livestock got infected in the first place.
One hurdle at a time, Yaela. We can't expect miracles.
A miracle. Pardon me for saying so, but I think the miracle is that these people have lived in this kind of lifestyle for this long without something like this happening. I suppose there is a slim chance that the infection may have been caused by some outside agent, but when you live in squalor, deaths from bad produce should be expected.
I beg your pardon? Who the hell are you to take that kind of stand on this particular aspect of a culture?
Excuse me?
I'm not sure I can, Yela. Since we arrived, all you've done is complain about the conditions and such, and I cannot take it any longer. People are dead and more are still dying, and all you can do is berate their lifestyle. Have you no sense of decency or empathy? I think you should get your head out from under that sense of self-importance you've been shielding it under since you boarded Starfleet 1 when this tour began, and actually get out there and get involved in what is going on.
But
the President recommended and assigned you because you are a superb analyst. So get out there and analyze. Just, please, go somewhere where you can be of some use. Good day.
I'm sorry, Ambassador.
Nice one, Jessica.
Mama, has anyone seen my mama? Mama, are you there?
Hello there.
Have you seen my mama? The nice man with the funny toy that makes pretty sounds said she wasn't well and she had to stay away. I want to see her.
I don't know where she is, honey, but I can find her if you'd like.
I'm cold. I don't like being cold.
Let me get you tucked in and warm. There, that's better, isn't it?
You're a very nice lady. I hope you find my mama. Don't like being alone.
Don't worry, I'm right here. You're not alone.
I'm glad. I don't want to be alone.
Ambassador?
Shh! He's asleep. I don't want to wake him.
Poor little tyke. He's exhausted from the damn infection.
He mentioned you, you know. The nice man with the funny toy, huh?
Oh, my tricorder. I was checking up on him earlier.
Where's his mother? He said she was sick as well and you were running tests on her.
His mother is one of the fatalities, Ambassador. One of the first, actually. It was her body that we exhumed with permission from the other family. No one's told him she's even dead, since he was too poorly to really understand.
Oh no.
In all honesty, if these readings are any judge, if we don't find some kind of successful treatment, besides what the antibiotics are doing, I don't think he'll last much longer. The infection's too much for his body to take.
What is this thing?
Whatever it is, it's artificial, that's for sure.
What? You mean it's man-made and not natural?
The last tests confirm the uniformity in its cellular matrix. Much too perfect to be a creation of nature. We've also identified that in both living and deceased, the main source of infection is in the stomach lining and the stomach acid itself, so it's definitely been ingested. That gives proof to our theory that the infection comes from the livestock. Once inside the victim, and having spread to the various organs, it begins steadily causing the toxemia we witness by mutating the natural bodily fluids so the body can't process and maintain them as easily as it should, creating more and more strain that the victim simply can't handle. Essentially, it turns the victim's body into a war zone and ultimately against them.
So if the livestock is the source, then we need to find out where the herd got infected, correct?
That's a start. V8 mentioned the grazing ground was a few hours away by foot.
Even faster by shuttle. Get Vignot to take you and start an investigation. Keep me informed.
Yes, Ambassador. I can't be up here for long, Miss Norian. I have patients I need to see to.
You are not indispensable, Dr. Gregson. The medical staff can do without you while we search for some answers.
Welcome back, Mrs. Norian, Dr. Gregson.
Ensign, we need to get to the bridge straight away. We need access to the ship's sensors immediately.
What good will that do?
To use the human expression, I have a hunch.
A hunch, ma'am?
Exactly.
It's not very scientific, you know.
I'm a political analyst, remember? I try and leave science to the professionals mostly. But since the ambassador feels I need to be more involved, then so be it. I'm just the best that I can do right now.
But what good are the ship's sensors going to be if you're trying to determine what is causing an illness? Surely tricorder scans are more effective.
There was too much kelbonite in the soil for the tricorders to penetrate for any effective scans of the village and the surrounding areas, Ensign. We could see that the area that the livestock grazed was the source of infection, but not why.
The ship's sensors are far more powerful and should be able to at least marginally penetrate the kelbonite topsoil and give us some idea of what might be underneath it to cause it to become toxic.
Wait a second. That's your hunch? That there's something under the grazing land? Like what?
That's what I'm hoping to find out, Dr. Gregson.
No offense, ma'am, but that seems like a bit of a stretch.
Considering this world has dozens of underground facilities having already been discovered, why is another one such a stretch?
She's got you there, son.
Ensign Lipinski, what is going on?
Commander Trask, sir. Ms. Norian and Dr. Gregson have requested access to the sensor array to conduct scans of the planet's surface near the infected village.
Where is Admiral Stalker?
He's in a briefing with Command about the situation on Tahn'Los, Mrs. Norian. I'm in command at the moment, so you can clear the sensor usage with me.
Fine, I will do so. Where is the science station?
First, why should I authorize it? What good is a scan from orbit in combating some virus?
Oh, for the sake of Polaris.
Commander, we're getting nowhere in our study of this virus or whatever it is that's affecting the people down there. Miss Norian has developed an idea as to where the virus may have come from, and although it's a long shot, it really is the only idea we have besides waiting for even more people to die in order to develop some kind of a treatment. Please.
Fine. Ensign, see to it, will you?
Of course, Commander. The science station is over here. Okay, setting scan parameters for the grazing land. Initiating scan sequence.
Well, that sounds promising. What is it?
Pulling up the results now, ma'am. According to these scans, there is something under the grazing land, but it doesn't match the details or scan profiles for any of the repositories.
So it's either not a repository, or a different type.
Is that all?
The scans were able to punch through the kelbonite interference that prevented the tricorders from finding this out, Ms. Norian. But they can't get a clear readout on what the structure is. All I'm getting so far is a general readout on the dimensions of the structure, but sensors are unable to penetrate the interior.
Well, whatever the scans show, the chances of this find not being related to whatever is causing the illness must be pretty low. So if whatever is the cause can get out, there must be a way to get in.
I'll try boosting the sensor gain and resolution to see if we can get a clearer look.
While you do that, I'll start scanning the local geography. Whatever this thing is, there must be an entrance somewhere. If this is some relic from before the Tahn'Los Wars, then the topsoil will have covered it. So maybe we can find a crack that'll let us find a way in.
So my hunch wasn't that much of a stretch after all,
Oh, joy. Now she cheers up.
As it turned out, Yela's hunch proved more than accurate.
It was another repository?
Only in the loosest sense, I'm afraid. It was actually a biological weapons development facility, several millennia old, dating back to the time of the Great Wars of Past Time.
And that had poisoned the topsoil.
According to the joint investigation that followed, the facility's main lab and storage center were almost structurally intact, whereas the rest of it had suffered over the years, collapsing in on itself. The inventory cataloged dozens of various pathogens and diseases that had been created and placed in cryogenic storage, all the seals intact, except one. It was only a minute crack, but enough for the pathogen to leak into the bedrock that the facility had become buried in, and begin the process of contaminating the topsoil. With that affected, the grass began to absorb the pathogen,
which then went on to the livestock because they were grazing with it. What a twisted little tale. And lab built far enough from population centres that any kind of leak would be contained before it affected anyone, except a group of people that did not yet even exist.
Who knows how long the facility could have gone undiscovered if it wasn't for this incident. More of the pathogens could have leaked out eventually and caused widespread harm.
Too true, I'm afraid. But thankfully, once the investigation was completed, the facility was completely decommissioned and all samples destroyed. The only benefit was a more or less complete inventory of both pathogens and antipathogens. With a formula to work from, the specific antipathogen was synthesized in time to treat and cure the rest of the infected Helan villagers.
I have to admit, though, the idea of a biological weapons facility on Tahn'Los is hard to believe, when all the other repositories discovered have been of such a peaceful nature.
Do not be so quick as to label us an altruistic race, Miss Kellen. We Tahn'Lana were once known for our brutality in the times before the Great Wars. As the name of that era suggests, our ancestors were fighting for their lives and were ready to take desperate measures.
Good evening, First Representative.
Lady Envoy, Miss Kellen, Mr. Thedren. Forgive me for interrupting, but I could not help but overhear the conversation. That incident with the Helan sect was indeed a turning point with our relationship with the Federation. If I had not seen the compassion Ambassador Kingsley could bestow on our people, or the effort her staff and the Starfleet crew went to, I doubt I would have been persuaded to cement relationships further.
You were there, First Representative?
Indeed, I was, Miss Kellen. Once I heard word of the illness, I had no choice but to visit. You see, I followed the disciplines of Helan myself, and that sect was my home before I made my journey into politics. I was the first nominated and elected Helan into the High Curia. Something Ambassador Kingsley was very surprised to find out, if I remember correctly.
It was something of a surprise, yes. I didn't think that the representative Venyat had mentioned was the first representative.
It was not a secret, I assure you, but simply a fact no one felt the need to point out, since it had no relevance to your visit.
If I may ask, First Representative, is this why Ambassador Kingsley is so welcomed by the Tahn'Lana royalty?
Indeed, Mr. Thedren. The princess was so impressed by my report on the situation, she took the unprecedented decision to be involved with the discussions that followed. And as we all know, that led to the princess overriding the Federation Diplomatic Corps decision to place Mr. Sovic as chief of mission here, instead insisting Ambassador Kingsley take the position.
I have to admit, I do wonder how our esteemed Vulcan reacted to your rather emotional handling of the situation while he was the actual Federation's envoy in charge.
Yeah, that, my dear Ursula, is a story for another day.
He's late. Again. By the givers.
My apologies, fellow disciple. I had matters I could not get away from.
Of course, brother. I understand. Those of us who live amongst the enemy pretending to be at peace with the situation must keep up the illusion of loyalty.
Indeed. Of course, I must also clean up after your mess at the repository.
I did everything according to the plan, if not for the interference of the Federation and Starfleet.
You should have taken the resourcefulness of their officers into consideration and adapted your plan when you realized you had officers as your prisoners.
We should have killed them straight away.
Idiot! It was bad enough you let that fool of yours kill the guardsmen. Your job was to scare and intimidate, not murder.
Murder does scare and intimidate, remember? Besides, you know as well as I that they all thought we were willing to die in there. Some of us actually did, thanks to their attack. At least dead, they cannot reveal the rest of us.
Enough of your blathering. You failed, plain and simple. It is thankful that the repositories are of no real importance to us anyway. Merely another approach we can use in our effort to keep the High Curia off balance.
The smaller demonstrations that we have started have helped to keep the High Curia and all those trumped-up sycophants who populate it busy, just as you ordered.
I am well aware of that. Still, that will please my superiors greatly. You know how they take pleasure in any moment where we can make the High Curia look like the collection of imbeciles they really are.
They aren't the only ones. To see them squirm gives me hours of satisfaction.
What you feel is of no real concern to me. Just make sure the harassment continues. We need to keep the High Curia completely unaware of our true movements. It will make the end result so much more enjoyable.
This episode featured the voice talents of Barbara Puder as Ambassador Jessica Kingsley, Holly Bednar as Rin C.S. Lan, Nick Beckwith as Dr. Philip Gregson, Jennifer Cole as Yela Norian, Carl Puder as Sovik, Sharon Savine as Ursula Kellen, S.R. Ellis as Nevichikal Thudren, Beo Fraser as Ensign Lipinski, Martin Lejeune as Terrorist Leader, Michael Liebman as Terrorist Superior, Bodo Hartwig as Venate, Rick Pike as Commander Trask, Clive Saunders as Transport Chief, Richard Miles as Shuttle Pilot, Sandra Miles as Fourth Representative, Betty Skur as Village Elder, and Jake Hudson as Sick Child. Theme music and score by Bodo Hartwig.